Chapter 15, A Divided Nation, Section 4, The Nation Divides. Well, John Brown's back in the news. Remember John Brown from the last section where he led that assault on Potawatomi Creek and killed 5 pro-slavery men from their houses? Well, he's back. And this time he's going to attempt to start a slave uprising in 1858. Now the plan was to attack a federal arsenal in the city of Harpers Ferry, Virginia. An arsenal is where you store weapons. It's a federal building that has weapons in it. And by seizing that arsenal, they then would arm slaves and start this rebellion. So John Brown and his posse attack the federal arsenal in 1858, and they take it over. But unfortunately for John Brown, no slaves appeared. And so when the federal army arrives, John Brown didn't have enough men to defend the arsenal. And so the slave rebellion just kind of went kaput at that particular point. John Brown was captured, he was arrested, as well as many of his men. John Brown was put on trial. During the course of the trial, he made some excuses, saying that God told him he had to do this, had to free the slaves, but that didn't convince the jury any, and he was convicted of treason, murder, and conspiracy, and then he was hanged. This is a famous picture of John Brown coming out of the courthouse, kissing a little black baby. Now, Northerners were sad. They mourned the death of John Brown, but they didn't like the way John Brown went about trying to free slaves. They didn't like his methods. They condemned his methods. Southerners obviously will feel threatened by what happened with John Brown, that you have abolitionists who are attacking places to start an uprising, and this kind of started a movement to leave the Union. The election of 1860 was kind of the final nail in the coffin of the Union, if you will. 4 people are going to run for president in this particular election. You have the Democratic Party, who actually had 2 candidates running because the Democratic Party is split in half. You have Northern Democrats, you have Southern Democrats. The Northern Democrats are going to select Stephen Douglas as their candidate for president. The Southern Democrats are going to choose John C. Breckinridge. You can see this is Breckinridge right here. This is Stephen Douglas right here. The Republicans are going to nominate Abraham Lincoln, fresh off those Lincoln-Douglas debates. And then a third party, the Constitutional Union Party, will elect John Bell, or nominate John Bell, to be their candidate for our president. Abraham Lincoln is going to win the election of 1860 without carrying any southern states. That means he didn't win one southern state. And when he was elected, he promised that he would not abolish slavery wherever it existed. So if we look at our political map here, Lincoln are all the orange states here. And those are the states that he won, which was enough to win. The yellow, that's most of the southern states, was for John Breckinridge, the Southern Democrat. Bell won some states right there. And then Stephen Douglas won Missouri and a little bit of New Jersey. But if you look at the popular vote, Lincoln had the most popular votes, and Stephen Douglas actually had the second most popular votes, even though he only carried those 2 areas. Now, the people in the South were all worked up over the fact that Abraham Lincoln won the election, and they believed with Lincoln as president, their economy was going to be destroyed. Their way of life would be destroyed. And so South Carolina voted to become the first state to secede, meaning to withdraw from the Union. Other states will follow suit. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas. They will secede along with South Carolina, and they are going to create the Confederate States of America. And they will elect Jefferson Davis, who you see here, who was a senator in the United States Congress, as president of the Confederacy. Of course, Abraham Lincoln is not going to be happy that these southern states seceded from the Union. He doesn't think it's legal. He doesn't like the idea that southern states could just leave the Union just because they don't like a government's position on a topic, especially like slavery. In his inaugural address on March 4th, 1861, that means that's when he was sworn in, Lincoln said that he would keep all government property in the seceding states. That means any kind of federal forts, any federal arsenals, anything that has to do with the federal government in the South would remain federal property. Now, deep down, Lincoln hoped that the southern states would return to the Union. That wasn't going to happen. That's the end of Section 4.